And joining us now to talk about that and more, we have Mamamayang Liberal Party-list Representative Leila de Lima. Welcome back to Morning Matters. A Happy New Year to you.
Good morning. Happy New Year, Gretchen. Good morning to your viewers.
You've hit the ground running as the 2026 starts, filing a petition before the Supreme Court, seeing the removal of the unprogrammed appropriations in the 2026 budget. What were the grounds in your petition that would deem it unconstitutional?
Okay. Actually, it violated, some of the grounds that we cited in our Constitution is that it violated a provision in the Constitution, Article 7, Section 2, that, that the budget, the national budget should be based both on a budget of expenditures as well as sources of funding. There should be identifiable, guaranteed sources of funding. And then another provision of the Constitution says that if it has to be a special appropriation, then there has to be a certification from the National Treasurer about the availability of funding, and also about the violation of the prohibition against riders. And more importantly is that it violates separation of powers. It weakens, it undermines congressional power of the purse. Because, the budget structure, constitutional budget structure, parang binaliktad na dito sa paglalagay ng mga unprogrammed appropriations all these years. Because as far as I know, it's in the 1989 GAA that the unprogrammed appropriations have been placed in the annual budget. But it started as just a modest discretionary, modest contingency reserve. But it has ballooned all through the years. And in fact, in 2016, actually, mababa pa noon, in 2016, 67.5 billion. But as pointed out by former Secretary Butch Abad, it ballooned to 807 billion in 2023. And then in 2025, naging 363, although nabawasan na ngayon in the 2026 because of the veto of about 90.5 billion. But there still remains billions, 150.9 billion. Now, it's under the constitutional scheme of things, it is Congress that authorizes spending. And in authorizing spending, the budget, the annual budget, national budget, has to state already both, not only the budget of expenditures, but also the sources of funding. And it is the executive that executes the spending. And then it is COA that checks on the spending, that audits the spending. So that is the constitutional scheme of things when it comes to public funds, when it comes to the national budget. But here, when you allow unprogrammed appropriations, which does not yet provide for guaranteed, identifiable sources of funding, then you allow the executive to complete the power of the purse, to complete the budget making, when the budget making is supposed to be lodged exclusively with Congress, because it's of course the whole budget process of course starts with the executive submitting its proposed budget. It's called proposed budget. I mean, the National Expenditure Program is just the proposed budget for scrutiny by Congress, for approval of Congress. And it's Congress that scrutinizes. And when Congress scrutinizes, it looks into the line items, it looks into the various expenditures, and also the sources of funding. But here, the unprogrammed appropriations, which are actually lump sums, then when you allow this unprogrammed appropriations, then you allow also the executive to have greater discretion on how to spend it, where to spend it, which specific projects to spend it. And that's why it has become the source of, the diversions and the corruption in the 2025. And that's why in the 2026 budget, medyo naging maingat na rin. And we saw that in the vetoing by the president, of most of the items. Because it used to be 11 items.
Well, Congresswoman,
down to 3.
On the first point that you mentioned of having specific expenditures and sources of funding, the DBM has actually responded to this, citing the 2019 ruling by the Supreme Court, Belhica versus Executive Secretary, where the unprogrammed appropriations were deemed constitutional because they are accompanied by an annex that specifies public purposes and corresponding amounts for which the funds may be used, and that these are sourced only from excess or windfall revenues released strictly upon meeting clearly defined fiscal conditions and validation requirements. Does it this allow us some flexibility over unused funds?
Well, in citing that, the so-called excess revenues, these are not yet in existence at the time of the enactment. So it's contingent. It's not just there. And again, it violates the constitutional provision that there has to be sources of funding, identified, guaranteed sources of funding. So that makes it violative of that provision. Yes, there is that ruling, but what we seek now is a categorical ruling, given the fact that this kind of appropriations, unprogrammed appropriations, has been ballooning in recent years, and we also saw how it has become the source of corruption.
You also cited in your petition
the wide level of discretion given to the executive instead of fixed standards, and instead of already being scrutinized at the level of Congress during the budget process at the level of Congress.
I wanted to talk about that point, yung discretion, because in your petition, correct me if I'm wrong, you also cited grave abuse of discretion. Who exactly holds that discretion once these funds are activated?
Well, in enacting the budget, it's of course Congress, and that's why we implemented Senate and the House of Representatives through its leaders. And then, of course, in the executive is the executive secretary and the DBM secretary, because they will be the ones to be executing, also implementing at the first instance the unprogrammed appropriations. Once the so-called excess revenues will be there, and then they would have the discretion, the authority to implement. And then they have the wide discretion again to determine exactly where to spend it, how to spend it, and then the specific amounts for each specific project, that should be at their level. So both the executive and the legislative. And we feel that under the expanded scope of judicial review, the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court can very well take cognizance of this petition, especially that we are raising an issue of constitutionality. And we all know that that the Supreme Court has the jurisdiction to declare any law unconstitutional, or to resolve the issue of constitutionality of any law. And GAA, the General Appropriations Act, is a law.
Well, the president has already vetoed 7 line items in the UA. Do you think we can do away without the other 3? That's the AFP modernization program, program on risk management, and government support to foreign-assisted projects. Kapag tinanggal po yun, saan po kaya maaaring kunin? Because we do know that for one, the AFP modernization program is vital to fund.
One of our significant points, we've been raising that. Doon pa lang, Gretchen, doon pa lang sa pag-consider ng House GAB, yung General Appropriations Bill at the House level, ay nag-oppose na kami. I voted no. And also Congressman Erice. We voted no, principally because of the existence of unprogrammed appropriations. And then nung pag-ratify ng BICAM report, we voted no. And ang palagi naming sinasabi, now, kung talagang, kasi kung mga importante talaga yan, we recognize, lalo na yung, the modernization program and also yung sa mga support to foreign assistance, foreign assisted projects. Importante yan. So dapat binalagay na yan sa programmed appropriations. Why put it at unprogrammed appropriations? O kung hindi pa kaya, at the time of the enactment, because of, insufficient fiscal space, for example. But I don't think it's enough of an excuse na sasabihin na lang na hindi pa kaya. Why not already specify a particular amount for this important projects? O kaya, well, later, if excess revenues come in and then there are loans, because that's another source of possible funding of unprogrammed appropriations, is just ask special appropriations, supplemental budget from Congress, so that Congress, in pursuance of its mandate, would scrutinize the budget being sought, and not leave it entirely to the executive. So those are the choices. Either include them already in the programmed appropriations, just like the rest. Kasi meron kung nagsasama dyan ng mga hindi naman ganun ka-importante, I'm sure we would be able to identify programmed appropriations not that important as those under the assistance to foreign assisted projects and revised modernization program. And ilagay na dapat yan sa program appropriations, or again, if hindi pa kaya, if they can justify that na hindi pa kaya, then supplemental, special appropriations. That's all we've been saying. But please, let's do away already, once and for all, with this practice of putting this unprogrammed appropriations, which we firmly believe are really violative of the Constitution, the separation of powers, undermine the budgetary process, undermine the congressional power of the purse.
I want to go to another topic. A colleague of yours from Congress has revealed that congressmen get bonuses during breaks. We came from the Christmas break. Is this true that congressmen get budget for their districts to take home after every break?
There are additional amounts, say during Christmas, that are being also given, but the regular ones are the MOOE and some other expenses or expenditures or benefits for the members of Congress. Kung meron 13th month pay ang mga staff and mga personnel, then the members of the lawmakers are also entitled to those kinds of bonuses. But as to the exact amount, last Christmas, I don't think I can really determine that. Basta meron din mga extra aside from the MOOE. But what we regularly get are really, aside from the salary, are the MOOE for the operational expenses of our offices and the extra amounts for the operations of districts on the part of the district representatives. And of course, sa amin sa mga party list representatives, that's part also of the MOOE and additional needs and operations for the sectors under the party list.
So lahat po itong mga bonuses, no, they are sourced from the MOOE?
Not really all. I'm not sure about that, but that's really part of the MOOE. But the bulk of that is really part of the MOE. That's what I know. That's what I know.
Well, we do know that the MOOE has been controversial because it does not require some kind of very specific line item expenditure purpose. In the same way, medyo vague po yung dito, yung paggastos dito. It's only requiring liquidation via certification. Isn't this also prone to abuse?
Yes,
yung mga bonuses po.
Well, theoretically, yes. So it behooves on individual members of Congress, the lawmakers themselves, on how to judiciously spend and properly spend the MOOE because it's only subjected to certain certifications and not really itemized auditing. Yes, perhaps it's time to make to revisit that policy.
And where does your good office spend this budget? How do you apportion that extra budget?
Operational expenses because we have sectors also covered, and then we of course consultants, and then operational expenses of the office, administrative, and researches, our employees, our staff, and then we have extra staff because of, again, researches and political activities, political operations in dealing with the sectoral organizations that our party list represent. Because there are also, sectoral consultations, sectoral dialogues in terms of crafting the sectoral bills, and even with respect to national bills. It's always good, it's always advisable to consult certain organizations, the stakeholders, whenever you craft a particular bill. And there are operational expenses that are needed.
And given how it has served your office, iba pa po yung sa bonuses, no, doon po sa operational. Are you for this? Itong mga binababa po ng mga bonuses every break?
Well, it's very difficult because those are, lawmakers can argue that we work hard we perform our functions, and we work hard in terms of fulfilling our mandate, and therefore from time to time maybe we are entitled to some extra amounts. It depends now on how the leadership would be able to look at it, in terms of motivating hard work on the part of members of Congress. Pero iba kasi yan, Gretchen, no? It also depends on how the leadership would look at the whole operations of the institution.
And who decides how much is given to whom?
And I'm not sure about that. Perhaps the leadership. Yes.
And would you have an estimate as to how much your office gets in terms of these bonuses?
I don't have an estimate now because I don't really keep track of it. I can look at the records maybe, but not at the moment.
Some would
Yeah.
say that dito po nagkakaroon din ng overlap no in role because as legislators kung nagbibigyan po kayo ng pondo pangbalik sa inyong distrito o party list, isn't that the role supposedly of the executive? In the same argument that you have on the unprogrammed appropriations, na napupunta yung pag-allocate ng budget sa executive. Dito naman, yun din ang pinupuna dito sa mga bonus na nagkakaroon din ng overlap in function and role na dapat hindi naman nag-distribute na or nagbibigay ng pondo ang mga legislators to their districts. What would you argue on that?
You have of course a point, Gretchen. But on the ground, in the reality, there are actually needs of the district, for example, in dealing with the constituents, in attending to the needs of the constituents. No, there are extra expenses that can be incurred by the district lawmakers and even by the party list lawmakers. But I think the bottom line again here is maybe we can really revisit all of these policies so that we can come up with a more reasonable, a balanced way of looking at all of this and how to spend also the budget of Congress and the balancing how district representatives, party list representatives perform their respective functions. Of course, the main mandate is lawmaking, but the reality again, as I said, there are constituents to serve and there are needs to serve. But then again, because there has to be really a clearer way and a more ideal way in addressing how to do away with patronage politics. Kasi kultura na yan, nandyan na yan, ilang dekada na yan, nandyan. So, lagi natin yan riniraise. Maraming nagre-raise niyan, lalo na ngayon. Then sa kasi nga nagballoon yung mga soft pork, the so-called soft pork. So, I think now is the time to really gradually think of systems and mechanisms on how to really gradually do away with sources of pork barrel. And that includes a review and revisit also on how Congress spends its own internal budget. I'll go for that. I would not say now na malinis lahat ang ginagawa. I cannot say that. I have no... I'm not privy to how exactly the whole budgetary operations of Congress, of the House of Representatives. I'm a new member of the House. So I'm all for that, to revisit all of these policies and mechanisms para unti-unti na nating maalis. Because it cannot be done overnight. Yung pag-aalis ng kultura na yan ng patronage politics. In the same manner na I could imagine na magkakahirapan, although it's really imperative, yung pagpasa ng anti-political dynasty bill because it goes hand in hand with the problem, with the challenges in addressing political patronage, both the eradication of political dynasties as well as political patronage. Kasi magkasama yan. These are tied to each other.
Okay. Aasahan po namin kayo sa Kongreso na bantayan ang mga funds na yan. No? Maraming salamat for joining us this morning on the first week of the year. We have Leila de Lima, representative of the Mamamayang Liberal Party-list.